What's up? I'm Zali, and in today's video I am going to talk about spending time in voluntary isolation. So specifically what I mean about spending time in voluntary isolation is, let's say that you're at a crossroads in your life, that you want to figure out what is it that I'm going to do in order to figure out who I'm gonna be. This is the moment where you can decide, am I gonna go for option A? Am I gonna go for option B? And when you are in a difficult situation to that, most of the time, there are some really good ways you can still figure out if you have no way of going into isolation. But if you have an option to go into isolation and be in a place where you're going to be completely alone for, let's say, a day or two, if you can manage to do that for a weekend, that would be very beneficial. So I've done a bit of experimenting with both ways. So what I found is when I'm back home, it's a lot easier because when you do a specific action, a neurological pathway in your brain will start to fire. So when the next time you have an option to either do the same thing or do the thing that you did before, well, the easiest thing, the thing of least resistance, is going to be to do the same thing over and over again. And that's why you can find yourself, as soon as you go back to, let's say, a house, let's say you've been traveling for a long time and you go back. I actually noticed that myself after being away for a full year. I started slowly going back into the habits I was in before, like playing video games and spending a lot of time on Netflix, just doing things that I didn't find beneficial. And it is during those moments where you have the chance to actually go into action and just test out some new things. It is going to be difficult, but I believe in you, you can do it. So let's talk about some guidelines. When I'm talking about spending time in voluntary isolation, it's very important to understand what exactly I mean. So when you want to do this kind of exercise is when you are at a crossroads in your life. You've come to a point where you have decided, I either go back to where I used to be before with the same patterns, or I have to step my game up and go towards my dream or towards this new goal that you want to achieve. So what can be really challenging about this is, of course, the first option, where you're going back to the same patterns, is going to be a lot easier. It's actually going towards what it is that you want. I noticed the same thing after I've been traveling for just over a year now, or it's actually just under a year. I noticed that so many of the same patterns started to come back. And it's important, it can get very subtle. Small things that you haven't done for a full year since you completely changed your environment around you. So talking about the guidelines, one of the important things about spending time in voluntary isolation is it's voluntary. You have to look into what is the benefit that you're going to get out of it. Because if you're just going to spend time alone in a cabin or camping, and you're just going to spend time on your phone or whatever you do, whatever habit you're doing that you want to get rid of, then I mean, it might be a very interesting adventure nonetheless, but that's not the intention. So set the intention first. What is the first thing that you want to get out of it? The second thing is, you can look at this at the same way as a dopamine fast, depending on what your intention was in the first exercise. When you are going on something like this, I would really recommend, it might be a good idea to bring your phone just in case of an emergency, but try to turn your phone off and don't use it. Right now we're in an age where it seems like the phone is just a normal part of our life. A few years ago this didn't used to be the case. I'm pretty young myself, but I can notice myself getting more and more addicted to it, which is also why I choose to voluntarily spend time every once in a while. So I don't do it that often. I can do it like every 2 or 3 months, just do it for 1 week. So if you are an extrovert, this might be the kind of exercise that you find extremely challenging. It might be the kind of exercise that you're just going to go there and you're going to have a lot of challenges just going out, and you just might sit there and not being able to figure out anything. So I'm leaning slightly more over to the extroverted side. I also have quite a bit of introverted, so it's not a super big challenge for me since I've practiced meditation and I've done this a few times now and I've seen some pretty big benefit. If you're on the introverted side, it's important that you don't use this as a way to escape from something, because that's what I've also done in the past. I've used this kind of exercises to like, okay, well, my mentor said, well, spend some time in isolation and write down what kind of goals and stuff you want. But at the same time, using that to like, well, I don't feel like being social. I really thrive on reading a book. Like, then you can do that. But if your intention is the same as mine, which has to be and figure out what it is that you want to do and how to carry yourself in life. Because if you notice yourself just drifting from side to side without really knowing what it is that you want to do, then this is a really good exercise for you. So step number 2 is, after you've found the intention of it, set out the specific guideline. So what I would recommend is doing this as a kind of a dopamine fast and sort of reflection as well. So basically reflect on all the behaviors you're doing and look into, is the behaviors I'm projecting, is that really beneficial, or is it something I'm doing in reaction to something just to escape it? When you're doing that, just don't spend time on your phone. Try not to masturbate, play video games, just anything that you would normally do. You can listen to music. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. Like you could actually try to not listen to music as well. If that is challenging for you, I would definitely say just try that out. And I mean, it's just a weekend. If it's 2 days of not doing what you normally do, like how bad is it really? Like, if you feel that urge inside you to really go into or like really do something, then if you can't not do it, then that is something to dive into. And how you would dive into that is basically you put your awareness into your body, and let's say that I'm feeling the urge to check some messages on my phone, and I'm just saying to myself, no, I'm not going to do that. But at the same time, the thought keeps popping up again and again and again. In the beginning, this might be too overwhelming, so it's important that you don't beat yourself up over it, because it is going to take a lot of, I wouldn't say not necessarily discipline, but well, you could say discipline. And eventually what you're going to have to do is to just get used to it, and it takes a little while. So I started trailing off a little bit. Getting back to the point, it's reflecting on what your behaviors are like. Because if you're going to spend time in isolation, just complete isolation and just cutting off all contact, except in emergencies, it's important. If you're cutting off all contact, then really use this time to figure out why is it you're doing the kind of behaviors you're doing. And once you can start seeing that, once you put awareness to it and you've written it down, it's important. You might be able to, if you want to do it on a computer, or if you want to write it down, that depends on your style, that's something you can choose. But try to keep the use of electronics to a minimum. So now that you've written down your intention, what you cannot do with the guidelines, and now it's time for the interesting part, which is what you can do. So since you're spending time in isolation, it's really important to figure out what is it that you're going to use your time with. This is also linked to part number 1, the first exercise, which is write down your intention for it. Because now it's really it's time to just supercharge it and just go straight into the behaviors that you would like to see. So since there's so many things you cannot do that you've decided yourself, if you're going on a type dopamine fast or any other kind of exercise that you want to do, then you can do that. But now it's time to write down. So let's say that you want to figure out what exactly that you want to do with your life, if you want to go for option A or option B. Now is the time to write down what kind of exercise is it most likely going to bring me closer to the answer. There might be taking some long walks. I would recommend, if you're taking walks, maybe try it for once, like without music. Because it's very easy to I'm going alone and I'm going outside, but then again you're using some kind of media. If you're on your phone, you can feel the vibration and you're always thinking about other things. But if you're already spending that time and using all that energy and focus to go into isolation, go into complete isolation, try committing 100% to it. This is an exercise that a lot of my mentors has been suggesting to me. Since we're in a world that is always connected, we're also in a world that's a lot separated as well. We're not spending that much quality time with the people that we love. And that's why it's really important to sometimes, every once in a while, reflect over which areas of my life should I improve on, or more specifically, where should I put more focus? Because most of the time there's only really 3 things you can focus on if you really want to improve them. So what are the 3 things in your life that you want to put your focus on? So that's also another thing that's really important. If you're doing this kind of exercise, don't bite more than you can chew. Because it might be overwhelming. There might be a lot of sensations in your body that you might be feeling guilt or other sensations in your body, because we're always so distracted looking down at our phones, on the computer, on the television, just all the time, without actually feeling the sensations in our body and just listening. Because we kind of look at it sometimes when we have intense sensations, no, I don't want to feel the sensations. But sensations and the feelings in your body is there for a reason. And it's one of your most important assets. So if you're using your time and you're just listening to your body, because most of the time you don't need to read all those books. If you're the kind of person that reads books all the time, the most important thing is actually executing on what it says in the books. Take action on it. You can read hundreds of books, but if you're not taking action on what it says in the books, it's not gonna work. You know that. So for this exercise, just figure out the 3 things, the max 3 things that you want to focus on, and from that you can figure out how you're gonna use your time the most wisely in order to figure out how you can focus on that. So basically reflect on it, and it's important to write it down because you're going to forget. So now you know what to do. You're going to spend 1 or 2 full days in isolation. If this is something that's interesting to you, spend 1 or 2 days in isolation and try out the exercises that I told you. And once you've tried them out, feel free to comment down below. I'm gonna head back skiing, and I'm also gonna go down and do the exact exercises I've been telling you. I'm excited to hear about your results. Comment down below, and see you guys soon. Peace.